Welcome to the Catholic Cafe, where Catholic truth is served fresh daily. We've made you a reservation in the luxurious corner booth, so come on in and see what's on the menu today. Now, here's your host, Deacon Jeff Drzymski.
Greetings and welcome to the Catholic Cafe. I'm Deacon Jeff, sitting in the luxurious corner booth of the Catholic Cafe. I've got Ziggy Rodriguez here.
That's me.
Along with Venerable Tom Dorian.
Hello.
And we're going to have an interesting conversation today, I got to tell you, because we're going to talk about this idea of degrees of glory. Right, the degrees of glory. So some people might ask, like, are there different levels of heaven? Are there, like, some people that have, like, a lot better seat? Like, you're sitting right in the front row. Imagine you're in an auditorium.
Front row.
Front row, right? Front row center. You know, is there a front row center? And I've always had a problem with this. I'm going to be honest with you. I believe all that the Holy Catholic Church believes and teaches. I do. I assent to all of the Church's teachings. But I have to admit, as an ordinary person, I struggle sometimes with, like, understanding fully and comprehending fully what the Church is revealing to us, because I have I've got a human intellect, human will, and it's like, at the end of the day, there's brokenness, and so I struggle sometimes. And so when I'm reading, like, what mystics say and things like that, I'm like going, wait, what? And I'm trying to figure out, like, should I get a single Whopper or a double Whopper? Life is like, I'm just like, what do I do? And then I'm hearing these mystics, and I'm hearing some of the things that are being said, and then I hear people talking about it, and I'm scared that I might fall into something that I'm not supposed to fall into. And I live in fear. I'll be honest with you, folks. I'm gonna fess up right here. We're broadcast on over 1,000 stations. Mm-hmm. This is heard by potentially a couple million people, and I'm saying stuff here. And every once in a while, I'll get an email from someone saying, like, you're a knucklehead. Now they, and so, like, you said this wrong, you said that wrong, and so I still do this because I love it. I love having the conversations. I love sitting here with you guys in the luxurious corner booth, like with Venerable Tom here and Ziggy, and we have good conversations. But also, I want to be vulnerable here and say, I don't know it all. I want to, and I strive to know more. But this idea of degrees of glory, I've always had a problem with it. I've always struggled a little bit with, like, wait, so there's a competition, like, and there's, like, rewards, and you get a better seat in heaven, which is not right, by the way.
I keep thinking of the Bob Uecker seat,
Yeah. In that situation, I'll be just a little bit outside.
Are you intimidated by it?
I don't know about intimidated.
Or are you just trying to understand it?
I think I don't understand it fully. Mm-hmm. And so then I kind of cower a little bit and go, and then I can't move forward. You can't move forward if you're intimidated.
You want to know the rules of the game, basically.
Well, that, and I want to fully understand. I like to have a vision of where I'm going. Mm-hmm. I like to have a sense of mission and purpose. And I think this idea of degrees of glory, for me, has been kind of a sticking point where I go, I'm not sure. In fact, I've at some points I go, this is not teaching the Church, mm-hmm. right? Once you're in heaven, everything's in heaven, right? Everything in heaven is like the beatific vision. You are in the presence of God. You are totally, fully satiated, mm-hmm. right? And so I get all that, and I go, like, oh, see, that's all there is. It's just like, once you get in the door, every seat's the same, because whatever. It's like, and the reality is, that's not what the Church teaches, mm-hmm. right? And Ziggy here was quick to remind me that, like, the Council of Florence said this, and then we read a little further, and the Council of Trent also talked about degrees of glory, and it explains that, but in a nutshell. Now, this is where a lot of people go, like, oh, AI is the devil. AI is going to take over the world. But AI is actually very helpful in doing research and in summarizing research results. And AI says the Council of Florence, which was in 1438 through 1445, addressed the concept of degrees of glory in heaven, affirming that while all the blessed in heaven experience perfect happiness, now that's important to understand, all the blessed in heaven experience perfect happiness, the intensity of their joy and their vision of God vary according to their merits, right? So, and again, I look at stuff like that and I go, like, this could be problematic for a broken human.
Sure. Well, and with the Council of And then the Council of Trent later on went and affirmed that as
Yeah.
well. And of course, we all know that the Council of Trent is famous for saying, hey, we're just spitballing some opinions here, and you can take it or leave it. Just kidding. They never said that. in
You
the
just
Council
made
of
yourself
Trent.
anathema.
I know.
You
No, but-
just separated yourself
Yeah,
from
right
Holy
there.
Church.
I'm joking. No, but
You were disinvited to the luxurious corner booth.
so these are some serious councils. But Council of Florence, and of course, they were building on prior tradition as well. Like St. Thomas Aquinas addressed this. It's not something that just like began then. But with the Council of Florence, as you just pointed out, that was in like the 1430s. And I think that sometimes when we hear teachings like this of, wait, there's like, we're living in a hyper-competitive age where there's a lot of like, consumerism, capitalism, materialism, a lot of people who are keeping up with their Joneses.
Win-win-win. Yeah, win-win-win. And it's a
Yeah.
competition.
People are doing stuff to one another in business and in politics. In the business world, the church has all sorts of teachings related to how you're supposed to that comports with like Timothy talking, the book of Timothy, Paul's letter to Timothy, talking about how like the desire for money is the root of all evil, right? And there was a lot within the church to really try to temper stuff in terms of how people would approach competition in the workplace, and a lot of that has not been, our culture has gone out of control with hyper competition. And so now, when we're living in this world that we live in, where people can play a game of Monopoly and they're going to end up throwing it against the wall, you know what I mean? Because they're so.
Have you seen me play Monopoly? It's been years, but I'm gonna say they're like that little metal dog is still stuck in the plaster in the wall.
Yeah.
It's still.
Well, the reason I'm saying this is that like we live in a time where we're going to be receiving teachings like this, I think, very differently than someone in like the 1400s. And we're also living in a time where people think in terms of like hierarchy, bad, authority, bad, and the notion of it's everything is sort of all about me in our culture today, and it's very me driven.
But in all honesty, based on what you just said, now I'm not going to say that, Sam, you've ever said anything wrong in your life, but in my mind, I just can't imagine that some guy working the land in the 1400s is sitting there thinking, I hope I get a better seat in heaven. Because there wasn't a lot of capitalism, there wasn't a lot of competition in that way, but the church has always seen this in the human psyche and the desire, maybe the broken desires, to get ahead and to to have stuff and all that kind of stuff.
All I'm getting at is I think we have to realize we're looking at the things of heaven from the place of earth, and there's a difference between looking at the things of earth from the place of heaven, and we're looking at things of heaven from the place of earth at a time where I think that our culture has gotten the best of our thinking a lot of times. Sometimes,
yeah, I think a lot of us fall into that trap of trying to get ahead.
Yeah.
Right. You hear that phrase, "I just trying to get ahead," or get my feet underneath me, and then get good foundation, and then to launch forward. And everyone's always thinking about like, well, I'm building my nest egg. I'm making sure that my family is secure, and I have enough money in the bank, and we're comfortable. Right. You hear those expressions, but at the heart of them, it can be problematic when you start thinking about increasing, right, things, your goods, your wealth, et cetera, et cetera. And this is not just about money. I still think that degrees of glory can, if we look at it like, as you said, I think rightly, that we're looking at heaven through an earthly lens. And if we do that, it can be very problematic, because it should be, heaven is revealing herself to us from a heavenly lens to earth, right? And we should be flipping that around and maybe imagining like how beautiful it would be in heaven, because it's like how many times when I've taught in the past what was called RCIA is now OCIA, Order of Christian Initiation for Adults. When I've taught this, many people, when I get to the part where we're teaching about heaven, I will tell people, it's like, a lot of us have this vision of heaven where there is like this, you have this beautifully, perfectly trimmed lawn with a white picket fence that you never have to paint. Next door is a Taco Bell there's no fee. You go in there and eat all the Taco Bell you want, and you also don't gain any weight. And everything is wonderful. And you're sitting there with two perfectly groomed dogs that are quiet when you want them to be, and they're fun to play with, and they play catch, and they bring the ball back. And you have this picture of heaven like this is what it is, and you're there with your spouse sitting on a front porch swing. And it may be that, but I don't think so. And I think that's because we're looking at it like, what would be heaven to me now? Right? And so this is why I am going to acquiesce to the church's teaching and assent to the church's teaching on this degrees of glory, only in the sense that, like, I don't understand fully the mystery, right? Because we know about how the church works in hierarchy, right? There's a hierarchy of orders. There's an organizational structure of the church. There's also, like, 9 choirs of angels, and there's 9 choirs of demons, and all these different beautiful things. And so there's the church triumphant, the church militant, and the church suffering. So we have things in this very mystical way where everything God has created in the heavens and the earth, it's all mystically driven and organized according to His divine will, right? Not ours. And so if we put an earthly perspective on that, well, naturally we're going to get into trouble. And that's where we fall into the trap sometimes of saying that I'm trying to do good so I can go to heaven, right? I'm doing more good so I can go to heaven. And in fact, I pray a rosary every day. And there are people, I think, who have the mistaken idea that if you pray, I don't know what the number is, I have to look it up in the catechism. I think it's 50,000 rosaries to get into heaven, right? And I guarantee you that if you go to heaven with exactly 50,000 rosaries under your belt, and you get there and you're kind of proud because you did 50,000 rosaries, and you're standing there in front of St. Peter, and St. Peter,
you're in.
Yeah, of course you are, because it said 50,000 rosaries, and you did. It was a lot of work. You did a lot of work. And you get there, and St. Peter looks at you and goes like, "Oh, good job, nice effort. You know what? It's 50,001. I am so sorry." Then he hits that little buzzer button, pulls that lever, and there's like this little trap door opens up, and you go away. And it's like, that's not, and this is what happens, I think, if you put all of your eggs in the basket of works.
And for those who... No, in the catechism it does not say
a
number of roses.
It can be implied. I think it can be applied, can it not? No, I'm being facetious. It's not there, because we are not works righteousness people, even though we get mistakenly called that all the time by our separated brothers and sisters in Christ. Our Protestant brothers and sisters will say, you Catholics are trying to work your way into heaven. And I think sometimes Catholics fall into the trap of doing good works so they can go to heaven, when in fact those good works are because of their faith in God, and they're increasing their love of God and their experience of God in doing those works. So those good works do things for them, right, in terms of eternal glory, but at the same time they do good for the world, and they're part of God's plan of salvation for the entire world, but they're done in faith, right? It's faith and works, and a lot of times we get confused about those kinds of things.
Well, and Christ is the source of all merit, right, for humanity, and so for that soul that has welcomed Christ into his life or her life, and is in that place of charity where you have that divine friendship with God and the divine indwelling with God, and God is loving through you, right, leading you to acts of greater love of God, which can include a deeper prayer life, but also greater love of neighbor and healthy decisions that are good for yourself as well, like being a good steward of that which has been entrusted to your care. That is actually God acting through you, right? So like that is, you're sharing in, you're not manufacturing or earning merits for yourself where you're the end. Christ is the Alpha and the Omega. Christ is loving through you. You are, by giving your yes to Him loving through you and living through you, you have the dignity and the grace to share in His merits in these little ways in your life, but they're nothing compared to like this. He who is the source of all merit.
100%. No, I agree with that. And so I want to talk about this idea and this concept of love, and that's what is supposed to be happening here. It's not about works; it's about living in God's love, right? And that's what St. Paul's talking about, like, working out our salvation. It's like we're living in love, and that's what we want to increase. There are some biblical passages that we can cite real quick that will help us understand that there isn't an implication in Scripture that tells us that there are, we'll say, degrees of glory, that things are not all like the same in heaven. In 1 Corinthians in chapter 15, it says, there is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. For star differs from star in glory. So is it with the resurrection of the dead. And it's like, wow. And this is St. Paul's trying to help us understand this sort of degrees of glory. But he's not telling you so go for the gold, brothers. Get out there and beat up the other guy. See that guy with one leg? You can run faster than him. It's like, it's not a competition. But at the end of the day, also in Matthew chapter 5, it says, whoever then relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so, shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But he who does them and teaches them shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Right? And then in the book of Daniel, in the Old Testament, chapter 12, those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. And you have this sense of brightness of stars, right, in heaven. And we look at the heavens, and we've all been out at night and looked up at the sky. Where I live, there's not a lot of street lights, and you can see so many stars. But when you get into the city, you can see fewer stars. Some are brighter than others. And so there is something about the cosmos, something about creation where we see these varying degrees of brightness. And again, where I caution really everyone, but it's really, I'm cautioning myself. So I'm speaking to myself. Don't get caught up in trying to be the brightest star. What you need to be doing is being caught up in loving God with your whole heart and your whole soul, your whole mind, right? And loving your neighbor as yourself and living in that love. And that's what's going to end up happening, right? And that's how those varying degrees are going to be played out in heaven.
Well, I'm reminded here with the litany of humility, the closing line of the litany of humility, that others may be holier than I, provided that I am as holy as I should or should be.
So that is, and see, I love stuff, and that stuff I always ignored. Ignored may be the wrong word, but it didn't speak to me directly until I started looking into this whole degrees of glory thing and going I want to be part of God's plan of salvation. I think I am, and I want to be, and I strive for that every day, and every day is a challenge. But at the end of the day, I want to be part of that, and wherever I fit on that mystical star map, I don't know, but understand, so some of our great our great church fathers and those who have gone before us, great churchmen and women, have spoken about this. Like Saint Thomas in the Summa says, just as in the body there are various members with different functions, so in heaven there is a variety in the degrees of glory. And Saint Therese of Lisieux, the little flower said, she said, all cups are full, but not all are the same size. And this is the way they were trying to describe this degrees of glory. And again, the goal is not to say, I want to be in front of that person. I want to be closer to God.
You want a bigger cup.
I want a bigger cup. It's like, well, actually, I think you can say I want a bigger cup. Mm-hmm. My goal is to increase the size of my cup, because in doing that, it's not about going I'm going to go to Walmart and buy a bigger cup.
So what I mean is, you want a bigger cup than me.
I don't want a bigger cup than you, Tom.
He wants you to have the big gulp, Tom.
Exactly right. Well, and plus, Tom, in Corinthians, let me reread that scripture.
All right,
it says, "There is one glory of the sun, another glory of the moon, and another glory of Tom's hair."
There you go.
That's another translation. It's roughly translated. No. The thing is, it's not a competition. It has nothing to do with
point.
Other people.
Right.
It has to do with you. I want the biggest cup possible. And in order to increase the size of the cup, that means you are more tuned in to God. You're more receptive of God's love, and then more expressive of God's love, mm-hmm. right? That you're actually moving up this ladder of love. And to be on the ladder is a great joy. And the way that you can look at it is the way, I guess, the Council of Florence and Trent and other councils have probably addressed, is that when you're in heaven, you are in the beatific vision, and you are perfectly satiated. Mm-hmm. right? You are not desiring any more than being in the presence of God. It's just saying that in God's wisdom that we don't fully comprehend, there's this map of stars that shows a panoplia. And maybe, I've struggled with, like, what is the point of that? Again, as a broken human, trying to figure out God's divine will as a broken human. And one thing I can kind of glean from that is perhaps if I look in the sky and see a dimly lit star, that there's the kind that sit there and flicker, where you can barely see it, right? And you can't see it with the naked eye until you just concentrate, and it's like, oh, there it is. It's there. And picture myself and say, look, if that star is glowing in heaven, is in the heavens, and has made it to stardom, I can do it. I can do that. I can be the barely lit twinkling star. I can be in heaven with God. And there's something there, I think, that is encouraging to me, where I don't have to be the North Star. I don't have to try to. It's not about winning a race, other than the race against sin and overcoming the temptations of the devil. But racing into God's arms, that's the only race that you need to win. And that's where it's like, I still see this as not getting lost in the weeds of competition. And when you do that, you're going to be in trouble.
Well, ultimately what it comes down to is giving ourselves to God in love, right? And charity, which is, that friendship with God, that divine indwelling within us, when it calls us to a life of love, what we're doing is we're loving things of the world and the people of the world for God's sake. He's first and foremost in our love, and that manifests in how we live our life more and more the more we grow in charity, right? And so we're not going to be impressed, for example, if there's like some monk who just is doing these like acts of asceticism but has no actual relationship with God, and he's just doing it to show off how long he can sit on a salt pillar.
Depart from me, you evildoer, I never knew you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, no one would find that. No one would be like, man, that guy's really good at on sleeping on a bed of nails. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that impresses us. But if somebody is, whether it's in some sort of an extreme form of asceticism that you might find in monastic life, or whether it's an extreme form of self-sacrificing love and charity in the ordinary life of a person who's a father or a mother, and wife, husband, and living out their vocation that way, that's ultimately what we're talking about. Is the more a person who grows in love of God and is loving the things of the things and people around them for God's sake, and are growing in their capacity to do that, they're growing in relationship with God. And if we look at our mystical tradition, that's what our mystical tradition is all about within Christianity, is you're being called by love to seek a deeper love union with he who loves you. You know what I mean?
And ultimately there will be different degrees of shining of stars, right? There will be a different degree of radiance. And so our goal is not to be we're not called to live the standard of Brother Jedediah. When he does that, it's like, oh, I want to be just like him and do it. He is working on his personal self-discipline, his personal relationship with Christ. He is not saying that, like, well, then you need to be like me. And if he does say that, then don't be like him.
Love sets aside the self.
Exactly
right? And so
right.
if you're doing it for the sake of the self, you're missing the point.
That's right.
If you're listening to these teachings and you're thinking about the self, you're missing the point. What we're trying to do is just respond to God's love for us and grow in our capacity to love to the greatest degree possible.
And here's the thing. Where can this have an impact on the world, right? Where it can have an impact on the world, it's not just about the personal relationship with you and God. It can have an impact on the world, because when a person reaches that level and their radiance shines so brightly in the heavens like the North Star, that is something that's inspirational to us. Or in the case of, Z2733c in the whatever sky somewhere, named by some scientist, has only been seen by one guy in a telescope that's so powerful, which is maybe me in heaven, right? That's also inspirational to me, because it's like, there will be the least in heaven, but at least you're in heaven, and that's awesome. and that's a good thing. But where it's helpful to us is if we see a lot of these shining stars, we're drawn to that. We're drawn to holiness. We're drawn to beauty. We're drawn to gift. And we're really called to live that life. And so the more of that radiance that's in the skies of heaven, right? And I'm using that alliteration so that we understand about the heavenly, so the saints. Knowing the saints. This is why it's important that we have this canon of saints, this list of saints. The church is not saying like, well, this one won and this one won the race. Isn't that great? Well, good for him. I'm glad he won the race. What is that to me? You can do this. Deacon Jeff, you can do this. You can increase your love for God. You can open yourself up to God's love so that you can, and that will literally, God is going to expand your cup and make it bigger, right? So that, again, it's not about beating the other guy and getting a better seat. It's not about that. It's about becoming the fullest in love with God that you can possibly be, and expanding your horizons beyond what you thought was humanly possible. That what God can do, with God, nothing is impossible, and you can do that. And so that's what we're called to. It's not a foot race against other people. It is a desire to live with God. So are there levels in heaven? The short answer is no. Are there degrees of glory? Yes. There are people who are in the beatific vision, right, who we can see now. Not physically, right, but we can see in terms of like that canon of saints that we can connect with, right, that we can use as models of behavior, and then also who can intercede on our behalf. And there's something beautiful about that. So this is what Degrees of Glory is about for me. I'm imperfect, and I'm growing, and I'm getting better at it, thanks to Tom and to Sam. And it's like, I hope all of you can do the same. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Catholic Cafe. If you'd like to contact Deacon Jeff, send him an email at deaconjeff@thecatholiccafe.com. Visit us on the web at thecatholiccafe.com. You can also find us on iTunes or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. The Catholic Cafe is brought to you by the Order of Malta Federal Association. Join us again at the Catholic Cafe, serving up salvation one cup of coffee at a time.